The Warlock is a great class in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. It's one of those classes that brings together different elements, and I really like when things are a combination of different archetypes or different motifs woven together. So you've got the magic and the spellcaster side to it, then you've got the patron, and depending upon your patron, you can have different not only flavors to the class, like there's an infernal, a fey, a great old one, a hexblade, even a celestial, but it also introduces this role-playing element where you have some type of relationship with your patron that compels storytelling and a certain dynamic to your character that other classes don't really have that necessarily baked into them. Then you've got the fact that you have these other unique options with the Warlock invocations. You have the different kind of packs that you'll make, whether it's by chain, tome, blade, etc. In my classes ranking video, I gave the Warlock A tier. It wasn't a low A tier, but it was definitely up there, and I think it could be even better. To this day, that has turned out to be one of my most widely watched videos, and it seems that people either love it or hate it. I get a lot of criticisms because of my bias against the warrior type classes. A lot of people think that I just have this innate loathing or disregard towards the martial classes, which no, that's not true at all. And I could see why people might come to that conclusion watching the video, especially if they're used to just, typical tier lists where things just get ranked purely by combat abilities or whatnot. But no, actually that was not the point of that video. The video explored all kinds of options, many of them non-combat and storytelling related. Because this is a role-playing game, not just a dice-rolling tactical combat game. And to me, there's a really great contrast between the Warlock class, in which you have some wonderful story hooks built right into you, that you can follow them by the book, you can have your character resisting them and not liking them, or you can do something different and change them and go completely in your own direction anyways. Then we have the fighter, and you're a strong guy who does what he wants. It just doesn't do much for me. How is that any different than just a common town guardsman or some tribal warrior who just grabs a spear off of the village weapon rack and decides, I'm gonna go out and strike my fortune? A lot of people say, well, sure, but the fighter is open-ended and you can do whatever you want with it, so it leads to any creative possibility. Yeah, you can do that with every class. The difference is the Warlock, and some other classes as well, of course, they give you some great lore in which the class is nested, and you can either embrace that and take it where it leads you, or you can rebel against it and go against the mold. And honestly, if I would have done a review of the 4th edition classes, I love the fighter and the barbarian. I think those are amazingly well-designed classes. Works of art, you might even say. Of course, nothing comes close to the bard. Am I going on a tangent? I think I'm going on a tangent. So the Warlock, one of my main criticisms in that class ranking video, and still to this day, is that the Warlock is so heavily based in Eldritch Blast. You run out of spell slots, you Eldritch Blast. You don't know what to do, you Eldritch Blast. Blast, blast, blast. You're kind of this Eldritch Blast turret at times. And I don't like that. I really don't. What if I want to play a Warlock who's like the Lovecraftian dark scholar? You're saying I can't play that, or like I have to be a wizard if I want to play that kind of archetype, who's more of a controller instead of a blaster? So I have embarked on a mission to make some new Warlock cantrips, and these are designed to give you other options besides
always having Eldritch Blast.
They're meant to compete with Eldritch Blast. In fact, I even put a special quality on them that any kind of option that you have that can be applied to Eldritch Blast, such as Eldritch Spear, which gives it a longer range, you can also apply it to these cantrips as well. So let's take a look at what I've brewed up. The first is Gleaming Arrow. I had the Fey Warlock and the Celestial Warlock in mind when I made this, but any one of them can take it. It takes an action to cast. It's a 120-foot range. You launch this iridescent arrow out of your hand, and you make a ranged spell attack. It deals radiant damage, and when you hit a target, you get advantage against the spells and other magical effects of that target until the end of your next turn, and the spell's damage goes up as you level. The second is Infernal Trident. This is a conjuration cantrip, and you conjure into your hand a trident of magical, it's a magical weapon. You can throw it out to 120 feet, or you can melee attack with it. They're both spell attacks, so they're using your charisma still. It can score a critical hit on a 19 or a 20. It deals 1d8 piercing damage. It's magical piercing damage, and if this damage then kills a hostile creature, you can then make one more attack with it against a different target in range. You can also use this one to attack objects, and I sort of had the Infernal Warlock in mind when I made this one, but again, anyone could take it. For the last one, I'm not sure if there's a specific patron I had in mind. I really had that Dark Scholar controller theme in mind when I made it. The Warlock who studies forbidden tomes. So this one's called Shadow Gaze. It's a divination cantrip. Again, it's 120-foot range. You attempt to pry into the psyche, into the mind and soul of a target in range, a creature that you can see. They make a wisdom saving throw. If they fail, they take 1d6 psychic damage, and until the end of your next turn, you have advantage on attack rolls against that target. You also, as a bonus action, can use your knowledge type skills, Arcana, History, Religion, Nature, to try to glean lore or information about that creature or that kind of creature. So again, that plays into the Dark Scholar theme that I was going for here. Which, by the way, if you normally want to make those kinds of intelligence checks in the middle of combat, that's going to take your action. So I might be actually the happiest with Shadow Gaze out of these three. I also, again, put a little note on there that you can you can still apply the Eldritch Blast type enhancements to Shadow Gaze, just instead of you having to hit. If the target fails its wisdom save, then that counts as if you had hit it. So, with Agonizing Blast, you'd still be applying your charisma modifier to the damage, for example. So all of these are, again, meant to be on par with Eldritch Blast, not stronger, but not weaker, specifically just different, and they have a different kind of secondary utility features that play into them. So if you are a dungeon master, I encourage you to make these available to your players. I heartily persuade you. In fact, I'll give you some bardic inspiration as well, and hopefully some of your players that play warlocks will like the idea of having some other options than always having to take Eldritch Blast every single time. Yes, let us speak of the price of this tome you have acquired. And if you like this style of video, please let me know, because I have my own additional options or remakes of other certain aspects of 5th edition, like I have a redo of the champion fighter archetype and so forth. Oh, and by the way, these Warlock cantrips I just released in my March 2020 newsletter. It's in the free version, so there's a link down in the video description where you can go and you can just download that in a nice organized PDF for your own game at home. Thank you, as always, for watching. If you're not yet subscribed, please do so now. This is Esper, and I will see you in the next video.